Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff.
Right.
So today we are diving deep into the world of ley lines.
Ooh.
These mysterious lines that are said to connect ancient sites and pulse with Earth energy.
That's right.
And we've got a ton of sources from you guys.
Yeah, we've got books.
Books, articles, websites
Mm.
on dowsing ancient sites, unexplained phenomena, you name it.
Absolutely.
Even the scientific studies.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like people have been trying to crack this ley line code for centuries.
It really does, yeah.
And we're going to try and see what we can find out about it.
I think so. I think we'll make some headway today.
So
It's going to be a fun one.
It is. So where do we even begin with ley lines?
Well, it's a fascinating mix of history, folklore, and like you said, even a touch of science.
Yeah.
What I think is so interesting about this topic is that it really straddles this line between belief and skepticism. You know, some people see them as clear evidence of this ancient wisdom that we've just lost touch with,
Right.
while others just dismiss it all as coincidence or just wishful thinking.
Yeah. So how did this whole idea even get started?
Well, the term ley lines
Ley lines.
was coined back in the early 20th century by Alfred Watkins.
Okay.
And he was an amateur archaeologist who noticed this peculiar pattern while he was traveling through the English countryside.
Okay.
And he saw that like churches, standing stones, you know, ancient burial mounds, all these different landmarks often seem to align in these straight lines
Okay.
that would stretch for miles across the landscape.
So he's like driving around and he starts noticing all these like churches and these old,
Exactly.
like you said, mounds and things like all in a straight line.
He's seeing these patterns emerge.
Was he thinking that they were actually like roads back in the day?
Yeah, so he initially thought that they were ancient trackways.
Okay.
So routes that people used for trade or travel, possibly even dating back to like prehistoric times. But as he delved deeper, he and other ley hunters, as they came to be called,
Ley hunters.
they started finding alignments that were much more complex and seemingly purposeful.
Okay, so it's like they're driving along, and at first they're like, oh, that's cool, those are all in a line. But then as they start digging deeper,
Yeah.
they're like, wait a minute, this is
It can't just be coincidence.
more than just a road.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we have these lines across the
Yeah.
landscape,
Yeah.
and Watkins is thinking they were getting around,
Mm-hmm.
but then things get a little more mysterious, right?
They do.
Because I've seen that some sources think that these lines are connected to like energy fields or something.
Exactly. And that's where we start to move beyond Watkins's initial ideas.
Right.
You know, while he focused on the practical aspects of leys, you know, as trackways, later interpretations started to see them as something more.
Okay.
Maybe alignments with astronomical significance, pathways of subtle energy, or even routes taken by spirits.
Whoa, okay, spirit paths.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued, but I have so many questions.
Of course, as you should.
Let's stick with the energy for a minute.
Okay.
If these lines are supposed to have like some sort of energy, how do people even detect that?
That's where dowsing comes in.
Dowsing.
It's this ancient practice where people use tools like divining rods or pendulums to supposedly detect things that are hidden underground.
Okay.
So traditionally, it was used for things like water or minerals.
Right.
But some people believe that you can also use it to detect these subtle energies, like those that are said to flow along line lines.
I've seen dowsers on TV.
Oh, yeah?
And they walk around with those like forked sticks.
Yeah, the Y-shaped rods.
Yeah, and then the sticks suddenly like move.
They do.
But how does that actually work?
It's a bit of a mystery.
Is it magic? Or
Maybe some dowsers believe that they're actually tapping into their intuition or their subconscious awareness.
okay.
So they're picking up on these subtle cues in the environment that we don't consciously register.
Right.
Others suggest it might be related to like electromagnetic fields or other unseen forces. Interesting.
There's actually a researcher named J. Havelock Fiedler,
Okay.
and he meticulously documented his dowsing experiments in his book, Earth Energy, a dowser's investigation of ley lines.
Wow.
And he actually proposed that dowsing could be explained by the interaction of human consciousness with subtle energy fields.
Okay, so he's trying to bring science into this.
Absolutely.
It sounds like he took this pretty seriously.
Oh, he was dedicated.
Yeah.
He didn't just walk around dowsing.
Right.
He designed experiments and rigorously documented all of his findings.
Oh.
One of his most famous experiments actually involved using stones that he had charged on different types of ley lines.
He charged stones.
He did.
How do you charge a stone?
Well, Fiedler theorized that these stones could actually absorb energy from ley lines,
Okay.
So he would dowse to find a particularly strong energy point
Okay.
and then leave a stone there for a certain amount of time.
Interesting.
And he believed that the stone would actually absorb the energy from that spot.
Okay, I'm following so far.
Okay, so he charges these stones and then he uses them on plants.
He did. Okay, what happened?
Well, the results were fascinating.
Okay.
He found statistically significant differences in the growth of the beans depending on the type of ley line the stone was charged on.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't just random.
No.
Like the stones actually seemed to have some sort of effect based on where they were charged.
That's what his data suggested.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So this guy's really trying to build a whole scientific system.
So he developed a unit of measurement called a petron to actually quantify this energy charge
A petron.
based on the rate of gyration of a pendulum over the charged object.
Okay.
So like a faster spin meant a higher charge.
Wow, it's wild.
He also created a unit called a lithon to quantify the power of these charged objects, taking into account their mass.
So he's coming up with,
Units of measurement.
yeah, like all this new.
Trying to bring some quantifiable element to this very unseen world. Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's something more to these ley lines than just
Exactly.
lines on a map.
More than meets the eye, right?
Right. If these energies are measurable and can even affect plant growth,
Mm-hmm.
what else are they capable of?
That's the big question.
And what about those ancient sites
Yes.
that Watkins noticed?
Yeah.
Where do they fit into all of this?
Well, that's where things get really intriguing.
Okay.
Because many of the sites that Watkins identified, places like Stonehenge,
Yeah.
Avebury, Glastonbury, Tor,
All very.
famous sites.
Yeah.
They've long been recognized for their potential astronomical alignments and energetic significance.
So we're moving from dowsing and plant experiments to ancient wonders like Stonehenge.
That's right.
It's like I'm picturing those massive stones.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to wonder if they were built with these ley lines in mind.
Right. And Fiedler actually suggested that ancient people might have been more attuned to these subtle energies than we are today. He observed that the energy flow along ley lines seemed to change at specific times,
Okay.
like dawn and sunset,
Really?
and that certain locations within these sites had a higher energy charge than others.
Wait, hold on. So the energy isn't constant?
It seems not.
It fluctuates
Yeah.
throughout the day.
That's what his dowsing indicated.
So does that mean that maybe they are aligned with some kind of astronomical?
Well, that's what some people believe.
Right.
Remember how some people see ley lines as alignments with astronomical significance?
Right.
Fiedler's work seems to support that idea.
This is blowing my mind.
It is pretty wild.
So these ancient sites are potentially built on these powerful energy points
Yeah.
that are connected by these ley lines.
Uh-huh.
And the whole system is somehow tied to the movements of the sun and stars.
It seems so.
It sounds like our ancestors were tapped into something that we're only just beginning to understand.
That's a recurring theme
Yeah.
that we find in a lot of these sources.
Okay, so maybe these lines aren't just random. And maybe our ancestors knew something about them.
Mm-hmm.
But what about all the myths and legends
Yes.
that are associated with these places?
That's another piece of the puzzle.
I mean, we're talking about Stonehenge,
Right.
a place that is steeped in mystery and folklore.
Exactly. And it's like every culture has its own set of beliefs and traditions surrounding these sites.
Right,
Think about the concept of dragon lines in Chinese feng shui.
right.
Very similar to the idea of ley lines.
Yeah.
This idea that there are invisible energy currents flowing through the earth that can affect our lives.
And the dragon lines are all about creating balance and harmony, right?
Exactly.
It's like these ancient cultures, even on opposite sides of the world,
Right.
we're recognizing the same underlying principles.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
There was also this recurring theme of spirit paths
This is pure paths.
that run through the folklore of different cultures.
Like what kinds of things?
So you have things like church paths, death roads, fairy passes,
Mm.
and these are often said to be routes that are taken by spirits or supernatural beings,
Okay.
and they often seem to align with what we now call Ackley lines.
So we're not just talking about ancient trackways or even energy lines. We're talking about places where the veil between like the physical and the spiritual world might be thinner,
Exactly.
where those worlds might intersect.
Yeah, these traditions suggest a deeper level of meaning to these lines.
Right.
One that goes beyond just the purely physical or energetic.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
We've gone from dowsing and scientific studies to ancient sites, astronomical alignments, and now spirit paths.
A lot to take in.
It is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
So are we any closer to understanding what Ackley lines actually are?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so many different theories and interpretations.
Yeah.
Some people believe that they are remnants of an advanced prehistoric civilization.
Okay.
Others see them as evidence of this hidden energetic network that connects all living things. Some even speculate that they might be connected to UFO activity or other unexplained phenomena.
UFOs.
Yeah, it gets pretty out there.
Now you're really taking me down the rabbit hole.
Down the rabbit hole we go.
But it is fascinating how this topic seems to touch on so many different areas. History, science, spirituality, even the paranormal.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to put together a puzzle with pieces from completely different boxes.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, but how do we separate fact from fiction?
Right.
Is there any way to know what's real and what's just speculation?
Well, one researcher who attempted to bridge that gap
Okay.
is Chris H. Hardy, author of The Sacred Network, Megaliths, Cathedrals, Ley Lines, and...
Okay, the Sacred Network.
And he proposed a fascinating theory that might help to connect some of the dots.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this Sacred Network.
So Hardy suggests that ley lines in ancient sites might be part of a much larger system.
Okay.
One that's shaped not just by physical or energetic forces,
Right.
but also by human consciousness itself. He introduces the concept of Teller fields and semantic fields.
Okay.
These energetic structures that he believes are influenced by collective thought and belief.
Hold on. So he's saying our thoughts and beliefs can actually shape reality.
That's what his theory proposes.
What?
Yeah, it's a big idea.
Yeah.
He argues that these semantic fields act like a kind of information grid,
Okay.
storing and transmitting information about the beliefs, intentions, and experiences of people across space and time.
Okay, so are these fields like the Akashic records or something?
There are definitely some parallels there.
Okay.
The Akashic records are thought to be this universal library of knowledge
Right.
containing every thought, word, and action that has ever occurred.
Right.
Hardy's semantic fields, while not necessarily identical,
Okay.
suggest a similar concept of a universal information network.
This is incredible.
It is.
So according to Hardy, we're not just passive observers of the world.
No.
We're actively shaping reality with our thoughts and beliefs.
We are all connected.
And these ley lines and ancient sites might be playing a role in that process.
That's the idea.
Okay, I'm officially mind blown.
I told you.
I think I need a moment to process all of this.
Yeah, take a moment.
This deep dive has already taken us on a wild ride,
It has.
and we've only just scratched the surface.
That's right. We've got a lot more to cover.
So stay tuned for part 2,
Yes.
where we'll delve even deeper into these incredible concepts
We will.
and explore the potential implications of ley lines and earth energies.
It's going to be good.
It is. It is.
Picking up where we left off with Chris H. Hardy, he suggested that these ancient sites weren't just placed randomly on the landscape.
So you're saying they're part of a system.
Yeah.
Like they were intentionally positioned to interact with these energy fields or the semantic fields we talked about.
That's what Hardy's theory proposes.
Why?
It's like these sites are nodes in this giant energetic network,
Okay.
a network that might even span the entire planet.
So we're talking about something like an earth grid.
Yeah, like an earth grid.
I remember seeing some diagrams in Hugh Newman's book, Earth Grids, the secret patterns of Gaia's sacred sites.
Oh, yeah.
You had all these lines connecting ancient sites across continents.
Right. Newman's book goes deep into that idea of earth grids, exploring different theories about their structure and purpose.
So not just lines connecting places,
No.
but like a whole system,
Yeah.
like a blueprint for the planet.
Some researchers believe that earth grids might represent a kind of energetic framework that influences everything from geology and climate to the distribution of plant and animal life.
That's a big idea.
It is.
It makes you wonder if these grids could also be affecting us,
Right.
influencing our consciousness
Yeah.
or even our spiritual development.
That's a question that a lot of researchers are exploring.
And if these grids are real, how did ancient people know about them?
Yeah.
Were they able to somehow perceive these energies
Right.
and build their sites accordingly?
That's a really good question.
Do they have some kind of technology that we don't know about?
Well, one theory that Newman explores is the idea of great circles.
Great circles.
And these are circles on the Earth's surface whose center coincides with the planet's center.
Okay, so I'm picturing a giant slice through the earth,
Exactly.
like cutting an orange in half.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And Newman points out that many significant ancient sites,
Okay.
like the Great Pyramid of Giza and Stonehenge, are located along these great circles.
So they're not just randomly placed. Their position on
Yes.
these specific lines.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, some researchers believe that these great circles might be pathways of enhanced energy flow,
Okay.
like major arteries in the Earth's energetic body.
And the ancient sites were built on these energetic arteries.
Okay.
Are they trying to tap into that energy?
Perhaps.
Or maybe even amplify it?
It's a possibility.
Wow.
Newman even suggests that the Great Pyramid of Giza might be located at the intersection of several great circles, making it a kind of energetic focal point for the planet.
Wow. The Great Pyramid. A giant energy hub.
It's a pretty amazing thought.
It is.
And it's not just about great circles. Newman also looks at other geometric patterns like longitude harmonics and latitude harmonics,
Longitude and latitude harmonics.
which suggests that certain latitudes and longitudes might hold special energetic significance.
Okay, so longitude harmonics are lines running north to south,
Yes,
and latitude harmonics run east to west.
you got it.
Okay.
And Newman points out that many stone circles like Avebury are situated at specific latitude harmonics,
Okay.
like 1/7 of the distance between the equator and the North Pole.
It's mind-boggling to think that these ancient builders might have been aware of such precise mathematical relationships.
It really is.
We've talked about Fiddler's experiments with plants and his attempts to measure Earth energy.
Right.
Do any other researchers try to investigate these energies in a scientific way?
They do.
Yeah.
David R. Cowan, author of Ley Lines and Earth Energies, a groundbreaking exploration, offers an account of his own research into flake lines and their effects.
Okay.
And he used dowsing to uncover a network of energy lines in Scotland.
So he's out there with his dowsing rods, tracing these lines across the Scottish landscape.
He is.
What did he find?
Well, Cowan observed that these lines often connected ancient sites, volcanic plugs,
Volcanic plugs.
and even geological features like faults and fissures.
It's like they were intentionally harnessing these natural energies,
Right.
almost like an ancient form of technology.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And Cowan suggests that these energy lines can have tangible effects on people's health and well-being.
So not just theoretical lines on a map.
Yeah.
They actually might be impacting us.
That's what his research indicates.
Yeah.
He even connects these energy lines to unexplained phenomena like apparitions and poltergeist activity.
Okay, now we're getting into spooky territory.
A little bit.
Is he suggesting that ghosts are somehow connected to these energies?
Well, he proposes that these phenomena might be manifestations of these energies, or perhaps points where the veil between the physical and spiritual world is thinner.
That's a fascinating, albeit slightly eerie thought.
It is.
It makes you wonder if we're surrounded by all these unseen forces that we're only just beginning to understand.
Absolutely.
Cowan's work also emphasizes the importance of dowsing as a tool for investigating these subtle energies.
Yes,
He even provides practical advice on how to use dowsing rods and pendulums,
he does.
so anyone can learn to dowse.
He believes so.
Really?
Yeah, he sees it as a skill that anyone can develop with practice.
Okay.
He sees it as a way to reconnect with our intuitive abilities and to become more sensitive to this unseen world around us.
I'm starting to think we need to have a dowsing expert on the show.
We should.
Yeah.
But for now, let's get back to those ley lines.
Okay.
Remember how Alfred Watkins initially saw them as ancient trackways?
Right. Practical routes across the landscape.
Empirical routes?
Yeah.
Well, as more and more ley lines were discovered,
Yeah.
researchers started finding alignments that were much harder to explain as simply practical paths.
Okay. So like what?
Well, Danny Sullivan, in his book Ley Lines, The Greatest Landscape Mystery,
Okay.
talks about ley hunters uncovering long-distance alignments
Okay.
that sometimes span hundreds of miles.
Wow. Hundreds of miles.
Hundreds of miles.
Okay.
And these alignments often connected sites with no obvious historical or cultural links.
So like completely different
Yeah.
cultures.
Which led some researchers to believe that they were something more than just ancient roads.
Right. Okay.
And Sullivan's book also explores those astronomical connections.
yeah. The
Oh.
idea that these ley lines might align with solstices and equinoxes.
Exactly.
Or even track the movements of stars and planets.
That's right.
It's as if these ley lines weren't just pathways on the ground,
Right.
but also energetic connections to the heavens.
A way of aligning human consciousness with the cosmic order. And let's not forget about all that folklore and tradition that we talked about earlier.
Right.
Sullivan delves into stories of spirit paths, fairy trails, and routes taken by the dead on their journey to the afterlife.
Yeah, it's fascinating how these lines seem to be woven into the fabric of our beliefs and mythology,
It is.
connecting us to something ancient and mysterious.
Something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, so we're talking about a network of both physical and energetic pathways linking these sites together
Yeah.
and potentially connecting us to something much larger than ourselves.
That's a big idea.
It is. And remember Cowan's research.
Yes.
He talked about how these energy lines seem to flow in specific patterns,
They do.
forming circuits and vortices.
Yeah, he even describes how these energies can be manipulated, amplified, or even blocked,
Really?
suggesting a level of control that's both intriguing and a bit unnerving.
So are we saying that ley lines could be ancient power lines?
Possibly.
Conduits for some kind of earth energy?
It's a possibility that some researchers are exploring.
Wow. And if that's the case, what are the implications for us today?
Right.
Could we learn to harness this energy
Yeah.
for healing, for technology, or even for expanding our consciousness?
All big questions.
That's a pretty big if.
It is.
But it's also incredibly exciting to think about the potential.
It is.
And I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear more about that.
I think so.
But before we go too far down that rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's shift gears for a moment
Right.
and explore the human side of this equation.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about energy in ancient sites,
Yeah.
but what about our own personal experiences?
Right.
How might these energies be affecting us on an individual level?
Now that's a question that deserves its own deep dive.
So we've been talking about these ley lines and earth grids as these big grand systems.
Yeah.
But how does this all relate to, like, us?
Right.
I mean, I'm not standing on a ley line right now, am I?
That's the interesting thing about these theories.
Okay.
They suggest that these energies are all around us, whether we're aware of them or not.
Okay, that makes sense. But if they're all around us, are they actually affecting us?
Well, Chris H. Hardy, the researcher who proposed the idea of Teller fields and semantic fields,
Right.
he believes that these energies can have a profound impact on our thoughts, emotions, and even our spiritual experiences.
Okay.
Remember, he suggests that these fields are shaped by a collective consciousness,
Right.
and that individuals can act as nodes within these fields.
Right. He's saying we can actually influence these fields with our thoughts and beliefs.
Exactly.
It's like we're all interconnected and our energy is feeding into this larger system.
That's the idea.
Wow.
Hardy suggests that certain locations, like churches and cathedrals, might have been intentionally built on energetic nodes to enhance spiritual practices and create altered states of consciousness.
So it's not just about the energy of the place itself.
No.
The people gathering there are also contributing to the energy field. I'm thinking about those amazing cathedrals in Europe with all that incredible stained glass and those high-voltage ceilings.
Yeah.
You can't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder in those spaces.
And that's exactly what Hardy's talking about.
Yeah.
Those feelings of awe and wonder are amplifying the energy of the place,
Okay.
creating a feedback loop between the physical space, the people, and the energy fields.
So I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Yeah.
But if we can influence these fields with our thoughts and emotions, does that mean we also have a responsibility to be mindful of the energy we're putting out there?
Absolutely.
Like what we're thinking and feeling could actually be impacting the world around us.
It's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
It's like any form of power.
Right.
It can be used for good or for ill.
Yeah.
Hardy emphasizes the importance of using our awareness of these energies responsibly and ethically.
So we're not just talking about ancient history and energy fields.
Yeah.
We're talking about something that has implications for how we live our lives today.
It's a whole new way of looking at the world and our place in it.
David R. Cowan, the researcher who doused those energy lines in Scotland,
Right.
he also talked about how these energies can affect people.
He did.
Didn't he say something about curly lines being connected to health and well-being?
He did.
Yeah.
Cowan observed that people who live near certain energy lines seem to experience different health effects.
Okay.
Some lines seem to be associated with increased vitality and well-being, while others seem to have a more negative impact.
So it's not just about ancient sites and energy grids.
Right.
It's about how these energies might be interacting with us on a personal level,
It could be.
maybe even influencing our health.
That's what Cowan's research suggests.
Wow. And he wasn't just observing these effects.
No.
He was also experimenting with ways to manipulate these energies for healing purposes.
He was.
He was actually trying to use these energies to help people.
Yeah.
What did he do?
Well, he experimented with different techniques for redirecting energy flows. Using tools like carved stones and strategically placed objects
Okay.
to create a more harmonious energy balance in a particular location.
So it's like ancient feng shui,
Exactly.
using objects and placement to create positive energy flow.
It's fascinating to think that these ancient practices might have been based on an understanding of these subtle energies that we're only just beginning to rediscover.
It's mind-blowing, but it also makes me wonder if we're just starting to understand these energies.
Yeah.
Are we at risk of messing things up?
It's a valid concern.
I mean, we're pretty good at messing things up.
We are.
That's why researchers like Hardy and Cowan emphasize the importance of approaching these energies with respect and caution.
Yeah, we need to learn more about how they work before we start trying to manipulate them on a large scale.
So where do we go from here? What can we do with all this information?
Right.
It's one thing to talk about ley lines and earth energies, but how do we actually integrate this into our lives?
I think the first step is simply to become aware, to open our minds to the possibility that there's more to reality than meets the eye.
Right.
To pay attention to our surroundings, to the subtle energies we feel in different places.
So to be more present, more mindful, to tune into our intuition.
Exactly. And then we can start to experiment.
Okay.
There are many different techniques for working with these energies.
Yeah.
Dowsing, meditation, energy, healing, even just being mindful of the places we choose to spend our time.
It sounds like we have a lot of exploring to do.
We do.
We've gone from ancient trackways to planetary energy grids, from spirit paths to the power of human consciousness.
It's been quite a journey.
It has been an incredible journey.
It has.
So if our listeners are feeling as inspired as I am to learn more, what resources would you recommend?
Besides the books we've already mentioned, of course, there are some great websites and online communities dedicated to exploring these topics.
Okay.
The American Society of Dowsers is a good place to start for those interested in learning more about dowsing.
Okay.
And there are many online forums and groups where people share their experiences and research on ley lines, earth energies, and related subjects.
It sounds like a whole new world waiting to be discovered.
It is.
And who knows what mysteries we might unravel along the way.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of ley lines and earth energies.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time for another adventure into the unknown.
See you then.